I choose not to be frustrated at you. I choose not to be mad at you. I love you too much to be spouting in anger, so I choose not to be mad. I love you too much to be mad, 'cause I believe in you, and I know what you can do. You've got what it takes and you can figure it out, so I choose not to be mad. I love you too much to be mad. Hello everyone, I'm Shari Jensen, and so I suppose you're probably wondering where that song came from. Well, I had spent days battling my son with homework. It was when he was in school. He has sensory processing disorder. He was having a really rough time and was in sensory overload every time he came home from school. And then we had the homework battles afterward. And I would spend half of my evening trying to talk him off of his little cliffs that he had himself on from how horrible his day was and who did this and who did that and just, all the bad things, and just over focusing on that. And I would find myself just exasperated because, of course, I felt bad for him, and I felt, it bothered me that all that happened, but at the same time, also, he was feeding into it by just spiraling down and spiraling down and spiraling down. And so I just got so angry because I would take it personally, and then I would respond negatively to him, and we would go back and forth, and we just weren't getting anywhere. And this song came out of this realization that I actually have a choice. I have a choice on how I can respond to my kids' strong emotions. I can partner with them in their pity party, and I'm not minimizing it. Believe me, I'm not. It's real. It is real to them. But I'm not helping them by going down there. I'm not helping them by getting angry or defensive or engaging in this dance of blame to guilt, shame, all the things that they can do to twist things so that, because they're hurting. And yes, we get it. But we also have to be aware that a lot of their responses aren't really about us. We can't take them personally inside of us and go, okay, well, it's because they don't like me or they think I'm not a good parent or blah, blah, blah. We know that based on a lot of our life's experiences with other people, that most times when people respond to us in a negative way, it's not really about us anyway. So it's the same with our kiddos. So anyway, this song was just a way of turning it around from this whole negative mindset of spiraling with them, instead choosing to see things from an elevated perspective. I'm choosing not to be frustrated at you, even though, and sometimes I had to sing that song, but singing it reset me, changed me so that I wasn't holding on to the anger anymore. But sometimes I'd have to start singing it through gritted teeth because I'd be so frustrated. I choose not to be frustrated at you, but ultimately, we believe the best for our kids, right? We know that they're going to do amazing things. We know that they were created on purpose, and that there are little gifts, right? There are presents, and they were given to us. And with that can be intimidating because we're just oh, I messed up, and we can beat ourselves up, but we can't go there on that. Ultimately, we we have to know that we're doing the best that we can, and just keep being intentional, keep trying again, and keep being real with our kiddos. So, but anyway, this song came out of that. So, so I was talking about my son and all of his stuff, and us, our battles. There are lots of things that we can do to kind of prevent future battles, or at least manage the situation so that they occur less frequently. And obviously consistency is probably the most important thing. Having consequences and responding consistently is super, super important. But there are things that no matter what we do to respond, they're going to have negative outcomes. And so one of them is like watching what they're eating. If they're eating a ton of sugar and you know that they're sensitive to sugar, and a lot of kids are, table sugar especially, and especially like artificial sweeteners like aspartame and things like that. Artificial coloring, a lot of kids are very sensitive, especially red dye 40. When my son had to get, he was having constipation issues, the first thing that they eliminated was red dye 40. And these were Vanderbilt medical doctors that are saying he can have other things, but get rid of the red dye 40. The same with preservatives. A lot of kids respond negatively to preservatives. So if we can minimize that, that can make a big difference. And then also healthy options. So my kids, or my middle son especially, was the king of the food battles. So he would only eat like macaroni and cheese. And then he ate so few things that it was hard to get him to eat anything. The times that I was successful with getting him to eat was when I gave him a big variety. So like five options, maybe just a small amount on his plate. And then if he finished those 5 things, maybe it was only 2 bites of each thing, then he could have seconds on and some of them preferred things and some of them the more healthy options. Then he would have the option, or would be able to get seconds on whatever he wanted. A lot of times I would give him a big bowl of one thing, and then he would get overwhelmed and not want to finish it. And that consistently was an issue. So that might be something to try if your kiddo has eating issues. Okay, sleep is another thing. Having a consistent bedtime and a consistent routine at bedtime, cutting out technology, green screen or blue screen time, so that their melatonin has time to kind of, their melatonin levels are released and everything. Taking melatonin, if necessary, can be helpful in that as well. But knowing that if they didn't get much sleep and they're sleep deprived, then your behavior issues are going to be enhanced, because they don't have the same self-regulation, they don't have the same emotional self-control. It's like hormones, like they can get out of control super, super quick. So sleep is another thing, and it's worth it to be consistent on that. It's worth it to take the technology. That's the other thing, is if they have access to technology in their rooms, they can get up in the middle of the night. My kids had friends. I never let them have their technology in their rooms at night, but they had friends who did, that would wake up every single time there was a ping, every time there was anything. And they would even wake up when there wasn't, to check to see if something came while they were sleeping. And so technology is a really, can be a really overwhelming thing for a teen or a preteen or a youngster, when they can become consumed by it. So making sure that they don't have it in their room or access to it during the night is also super valuable. Attention. So for example, my little sister just had her 3rd baby. with that, and her husband is a pilot, so he travels all the time. So with that, we can, or it's a matter of like, we can anticipate that the second kiddo, and probably the first one too, but the second one especially, who was now replaced by the third baby, is going to have some emotional pushback, right? He's going to get triggered because he doesn't have the same attention, that so he can start seeking negative attention to compensate for, or to, because negative attention is better than no attention, right? And so preemptively understanding that and planning ahead, if you think of them as a little love bank, they have this little love bank of time. If we can pour into that love bank ahead of time at the beginning of the day, or whenever we can, say it's in the morning when our newest little one is sleeping or happy, or can be more independent, then our evenings and our afternoons are going to go, our homeschool time is going to go much better. Then that's one-on-one time that we can have with them in a positive way. But then also our evenings are going to go much better, because we're not going to have the meltdowns from the new baby, plus the toddler that is frustrated at not getting enough attention, plus, all the other things that go into it. So planning out, how am I going to give this child intentional time that's going to be positive in a way that they receive it? So whether it's playing a game with them, doing a puzzle, going outside with them, whatever, things like that, but planning your attention. Now, the other thing is, so when I was a teacher, one of my teammates had this saying. She would say, it explains the behavior, but it doesn't excuse it. And I love that, because we can justify their reasoning or their behavior all over the place. We do it. I do it all the time. It's so easy to do that, but it's super important that we can go, it explains it, but it doesn't excuse it. So yes, we need to know what explains the behavior so that we can avoid those things, those situations like sleep or food responses or lack of attention or things like that, so we can plan ahead, but it doesn't excuse it. So making sure that we have consequences to manage that. Which brings me to my next point. If you have tiny ones, one of the things that was super effective for me was the Love and Logic had this whole little sing-song thing that they would say, uh-oh, time for a little bedroom time. Kick a little, scream a little, throw a little fit, come back when you're sweet. And I know it sounds odd, and most people would probably be like, what? But it actually was really effective, even though it frustrated my kids every time they would hear it, because it meant that I was not buying into their stuff. I wasn't getting emotionally charged. I would just do the sing-songy voice so that I could keep myself sane. That helped me to keep my own sanity. And so for my kids, their timeout time was in our laundry room. So pick a space in your house. If you have a kiddo that is just getting out of control and needs to self-regulate, my suggestion would be not in their bedroom, because there are things for them to do. It's not going to accomplish anything. It just gives them a chance to get away and go do whatever they want to do. So choose a place where there's nothing to do. It can be a bathroom. It could be a laundry room. For me, it was the laundry room. A place where they're not going, if they kick and scream and throw a fit and get mad for 5 minutes, no matter what they do, it's not disturbing anybody else. So obviously don't put it next to the baby's room, because if the baby's napping, then obviously you're not going to be able to follow through on that. But having this place where they can go and they can get all of this stuff out, and then when they're ready and they've cooled down, then then that's the time that we can talk to them, or we can love on them, give them all kinds of positive attention. But when they're in that negative fit, it's really super important that we're not validating that negative spiral, that we're not feeding fire to it, giving them positive reinforcement. So when they're not complying, if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, a lot of times they have things that they do that are gonna to avoid or to try to shift our attention from us following through on it. They can be like, oh, give me a hug, give me a hug. Or they can be like, I love you, mommy. Like my 2-year-old would just bat, or my oldest child would, when he was little, would bat his eyes at me, and he just looked so sweet, and he is sweet. He's a good kid. But it would be hard for me to like follow through on things because he knew how to make me feel close to him. And that's a good thing. But when we're disciplining, it's super important that we are, kind of not emotionally attached to it one way or the other. Not positive emotions or negative emotions, that we're just they're not getting very much response out of us either way until afterward, once they've changed their behavior, or once they've, been in their timeout or whatever. Then that's the time that when we can come back and give them all kinds of attention and love and everything, so that we're reinforcing the appropriate behavior and not reinforcing the negative behavior. Same with like them hugging us or negative behavior, throwing things down, knocking things down, things like that. If we can have a timeout room where we can say, uh-oh, time for a little timeout time, and they have to go in that room and be in that space until they decide to get it together. You can just wait them out. We're not giving them any attention. We're not talking to them. We're not yelling at them. We're just sitting, and we can have rules. The other thing that Love and Logic had is, would you like, it's about choices, like always giving them 2 choices. And so one of them for the timeout time was, time for a little bedroom time, or a little timeout time. Kick a little, scream a little, throw a little fit, come back when you're sweet. And then taking them to there, would you like to walk by yourself, or would you like me to carry you? And then saying, would you like the door opened, or would you like the door, closed? So for example, would you like to walk, or would you like me to carry you? Then they may be like, ah! I've had that. They're screaming and kicking and screaming. Oh, I guess you want me to carry you. Pick them up, take them in, put them in the laundry room. Would you like the door closed, or would you like the door open? And, and then they're like, I want it open. So I open the door, and they might bolt out as soon as I open, or as soon as I stand, next to the door or whatever, at the first chance that they get. So then, I guess you need it closed. I guess you're choosing to have it closed. So putting them in there, closing the door, holding the door knob. And these are extreme, obviously, but the great thing about it is it only takes a couple of times, and then they're like, obviously this, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not getting any response, negative response. I'm not getting the emotional, the cause and effect that I'm looking for of seeing my mom get wigged out. I'm not getting anywhere. This isn't motivating for me anymore. And all that happens is I have to sit in this laundry room where there's nothing for me to do. And they get over it so fast. So it may feel cruel to put your hand on the doorknob, but you did give them a choice. And next time you can say the same thing again. Would you like the door open, or would you like it closed? And if they say, open, chances are more likely they're going to actually stay there, because they know that their choice is isolation or to be close to you. And then the other thing is standing outside of the door and just having something to do, not giving them any kind of attention, negative or positive, for, just until you see that they're ready to come out. And once they're calmer and more ready, then looking for the opportunity to find what they're doing well. So praising them for catch them being good. So, oh, I see that you're ready to come out. That's so awesome. All right, let's go, and then looking for your opportunity to do something special with them. Do you want to go build a puzzle? And it doesn't have to be immediate, but like within the next 10 minutes or so, before they start any kind of negative behaviors. Would you like to do a puzzle, or would you like to, something that is bonding between the two of you so that you're connecting? So that because obviously your connection has been broken when they were in timeout. So it's an opportunity to reconnect again. And so let's see. Bribery versus catching them being good. Whenever possible, instead of saying, if you do, I know that, like, feel free to go outside after you've done this. You could construe that as bribery, I suppose, but that's more cause and effect. Bribery is, hey, if you do this, then we're going to go to, I'm going to buy you this toy or whatever. Whenever possible, try to avoid bribery, because you're not always going to have things, and it loses its effect the more often you do it. But catching them being good is super powerful. If you, like I used to, when I was a classroom teacher, and when I was a sub, really, that's when that's when I first realized the power of, like, Smarties for smart choices. And I had this little car that had the Smarties, little tiny candies, because they don't have hardly any sugar in them, because they're so tiny. They're almost like Tic Tacs. And so I would go around and look for them doing what they were supposed to do. I didn't pay any attention to the negative stuff, but I would just look for them doing the thing that they were supposed to be doing. And I would give the other kids, the kids who were making good choices, the things that, or I would give them a Smartie for smart choices, and look for opportunities with those kids who I already knew. I had already been told by substitute or other teachers that these kids were the kids who had, who would be the behavior problems. Those would be the ones that I would be, like, looking for my opportunity. How do I catch them being good from the beginning? I want to praise them as often as possible, or reward them as often as possible. That's not bribery, and that is not, you don't have to, like, give it to them every single time, where they're like, hey, you didn't give me this because I was doing this. Why didn't you give it to me? It doesn't, if you study anything about psychology, the Pavlov, believe it is Pavlov, the dog, and that whole thing. People are more motivated by inconsistent reward systems than if they get rewarded every single time. Instead, the thought of getting rewarded can be more powerful than even always giving them a reward but as much as possible in the beginning, you want to be able to reward or notice when they're doing the right thing. And whether it's in a word, I love the way you da-da-da-da. It's so great the way you're so focused right now. That's so awesome. A pat on the back, a gentle hug, a Smartie, like all different things, so that you're changing it up all the time. Sometimes it's tangible, sometimes it's not as tangible, it's more of a word. Things like that can make such a difference. Let's see. And the last thing. So I talked to you last time about using the words, feel free to blank when blank, feel free to feel free to play with your Legos when your room is clean. Feel free to play this video game after you've read 2 books. Feel free to, I was talking about chores. Feel free to go outside when your laundry is folded and in your drawer. Obviously not expecting perfection, because laundry is it's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. It's still important. It's important that they feel like they're important. They have important roles, that they have jobs and duties to the family, but also that they're important contributing members of our family. That builds their identity. So, so saying feel free to blank when blank was the one thing that I was talking about with parenting with love and logic. One of the key phrases that I loved. Another key phrase that I loved is, I love you too much to argue. And, or I love you too much to argue about that, when they say, but mom, and start trying to get into a power struggle with us, just not engaging. I love you too much to argue with you about this. I love you too much to argue with you about this. And we talked about how we're really showing them that our relationship with them is the most important thing. And you don't want to I don't want to let anything get in the way of my connection with my child. So I'm not going to engage in the power struggle back and forth. We're just shutting it down. And so, but one thing I didn't talk about was the empathy piece of it. It's, first off, our strong emotions trigger their strong emotions. So if we're angry about it and we're saying, we are saying it out of anger, then we're going to get negative responses out of that. But also we need to be real about their empathy, the empathy piece of it too. So if they're like, but mom, I didn't get any sleep last night or whatever, we need to acknowledge that too. So we can say, I totally understand, and feel free to da-da-da when you da-da-da. So again, it's still the broken record, but we're showing empathy. I totally get that. I totally get it that you're tired, and, feel free to blah, blah, blah when you blah, blah, blah. Or I love you too much to argue, saying that again after it too. So acknowledging what they're going through, but saying, and da, 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 and holding them to that. Now, the difference between and but, it could be attempting to say, I totally understand that you're tired, but you need to get this done. The difference between but and is that but kind of negates the, I totally understand that you're feeling frustrated, or I totally understand that you're tired, or whatever. The but kind of invalidates that. So, whereas saying and means you're partnering with it. I get that, and I still need you to do this. So I think that is it. If you have any questions, or try that out again. This time, try it with the empathy piece of it. Let me know what you think. Love to see how that's working for you.